All right, now, everybody. Quiet, listen to me. We're going to start a show. Now, some of you people have been with me before. You know it's going to be a tough grind, but we're going to have a show.
And hello, all. Glad you could be here. I'm delighted by our pre-show arrangements to bring you 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag. I don't know how we're all going to get it in, but we're going to try. John Rothmann's here today. I know. The guy who's written a book about the Middle East and Iran. He can, I think, talk about the complexities associated with dealing in Iran, in and around the Middle East. I think one of the things that is often passed over in the blizzard of information and detail is all the different factions, even all the different splinters of religious sects that make up the Iranian people. Now you're hearing even the Kurds are being called upon to somehow help out in the war efforts. So the idea somehow that one recognize the complexities associated with the population of Iran, a population, as you know, of 92 million people. I think you're beginning to have to focus on that. I don't think this will be the one and done that Donald Trump had envisioned. The kind of Venezuela mic drop moment that he had in his mind, I believe, is nowhere on the stage. Now, what he may do, and we'll talk about this a little bit today, he may literally do the, declare victory and take off thing, and just leave Rome burning. It's a tried and true American move. But that this was a half-baked effort is to insult half-baked efforts. This wasn't even in the oven at all. This was, and if you've watched the show the last couple of days, and I'm sure you've watched other shows or read other materials, you've seen the utter disarray and chaos that has informed the decision-making associated with this war. And frankly, it's right on brand for this crew. This is a crew that can't find their butt with both hands. They are incompetent in the extreme. They exist because they are loyal to Donald Trump. They exist because they'll break the law. They exist because they'll lie for Donald Trump. And as a result, you have essentially utter incompetence at the highest levels. Now, the military is a well-oiled machine. The American military, well-armed and well-trained, can be directed to various tasks. But if the guy running the military is an incompetent drunk who came off the set of a weekend television show as a host and now is kind of playing the role of Pentagon chief, you're likely not to have that well-oiled machine directed in any kind of efficient manner. And as a result, you're seeing now more and more talk of the fact that there'll be munitions issues, that the kind of protracted engagement in Iran that we're looking at just doesn't fit with what the American framework for fighting is all about. So all these things are in play, and we'll talk about them. There is a $10 super chat into the super chat. First is Jim Slayton. Remember when Joe Biden got blasted over the Afghanistan evacuation? Trump, hold my beer. Watch this. Exactly. Isn't it
seems pretty
true?
Poorly thought out, I mean, you would think if they knew they were going to start dropping bombs that they would have tried to pull these people out ahead of time.
The problems with the lack of evacuation of Americans from many parts of the region, no plan in place even to begin that process. We'll get to that. What happened in Texas with the vote? We'll talk about that. Kristi Noem ending up on the griddle in Congress. We'll get to that today. And some real medicine for MAGA is coming. It's time to face the music. The guy's a fraud. You morons didn't realize he was a fraud. And this is why you stay with him, because I say things like you morons and you think, yeah, that guy's my enemy. So I apologize for calling you morons. I've been sucked into bad things also. So say you love me, say you'll make my life better, and all of a sudden you get drunk on that. And I think what really happened here, and then I want to get into things properly. But when I look back at just the way that owning the libs became a way to achieve political power in America, like trolling the libs really became a thing. You know, owning the libs, destroying the liberal dream, the environmentalists, you know, those trucks that go by and they blew the, what is that? You know what I'm talking about, Tony? When that smoke, they blow it into the Tesla or electric car. That was like a thing, and those videos went viral. Nobody that doesn't track with anybody. Okay, anyway,
with diesel.
Yeah, with diesel. Thank you. Tony knows it. Kim, please get on social media once in a while, and you'll see this stuff. It's everywhere. But now that's over. So the idea somehow that you could make policies, say things, and go against policies just to own the libs was a thing. So a smack-talking guy like Trump, I think, attracted a lot of you in MAGA, and he was sort of the apex predator of trolling, and that allowed many in this frustrating world of politics to feel like, this is my man. He's going to take me to the promised land. He's going to lower prices, end wars, make medicine free, and before you know it, we'll be dancing in his ballroom. Well, it's all BS. It seemed clearly BS, and if you've, I think, been in and around New York, there's no New Yorker who didn't know that Trump was full of crap. I mean, it was well known. But that's ancient history now. Now he is the guy running everything, running America aground, running the economy of America aground, grabbing tariffs that will turn the economy on its side. However, in the process, he'll make all kinds of deals with nations for Trump Inc. to expand, for billions of dollars to end up in his pockets. And so, in a way, does it matter? But now, in addition to all of that, he wants to get his punch card into the Iran Middle East sphere of influence. Coming off the crack high of Soleimani, he took off Soleimani, you'll remember, in season 1 of the Trump administration. And there really weren't any repercussions that were serious. And similarly, he went to Venezuela, didn't really experience any repercussions there. So that jacked him up. Did the bombing of the nuclear facility. Remember, he obliterated it in the 12-day go-round that the Israelis and the Americans pulled in Iran, and Iran responded in a tepid way, almost to say, all right, guys, stop with this. But this could make Iraq look like a kid's birthday party. This is really serious. And we'll talk to John Rothmann about it bottom of the hour. Now, before I get any farther, I wanted to thank you, Lynn. Lynn
Shamshoyan.
Shamshoyan. Come on, I love the last name.
Yeah.
Lynn Shamshoyan, thank you for a $2 super chat. Super sticker, I guess that was. Here's a super chat, $10 from CC Ryder. As a former 20-year Republican, I can tell you guys this White House is governed by two principles: the religious agenda and corruption. They define agenda, then work backwards to craft gaslighting talking points. I agree with that. They reverse engineer everything. This is what we want. This is what we're going to get. Now let's reverse engineer the messaging. So Trump is going to appoint Jesus as supreme commander of the Middle East. The alarming thing related, thank you for that, Jim Shields. The alarm, you can chat with the show live and we'll try to share what we can. The alarming thing about the Jesus reference is that there is a real strong streak of Christian nationalists and Christo-fascists that make up the right wing of the American political party now, of MAGA, of the Republicans. I mean, in a sense, they're kind of they've been lurking there in the GOP for quite some time. So let me get into that a little bit.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We'll break down the war, and we'll break down Iran, and we'll break down the various factions there in a moment. But I wanted to get to what is a real concern, and apparently it's such a concern to military enlisted people that they have complained and filed formal complaints about the fact that the message being disseminated by Pete Hegseth and by commanders is one of a return of Jesus and Armageddon as a result of the Iran war. Specifically, it's this: a combat unit commander telling non-commissioned officers at a briefing that the Iran war is part of God's plan and that President Donald Trump was, quote, anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. From Saturday morning through Monday night, more than 110 similar complaints about commanders in every branch of the military were being logged by the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. The complaints came from more than 40 different units spread across at least 30 military installations. This is not one briefing, one luncheon, just overheard, oh, it's getting blown out of proportion. At least 40 different units across at least 30 military installations. One complaint identified themselves as non-commissioned officers in a unit currently outside the Iran combat zone, but in ready support status, deployable at any time. They said that they were Christian and emailed the MRFF on behalf of 15 troops, including 11 Christians. The MRFF is the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity as at the uppermost levels of the U.S. military, reported here, airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study, which is fine. It's led by a preacher who says God commands America to support Israel. Monday's email complaining about this says that the commander's remarks destroy morale and unit cohesion. So, this is, I think, at minimum, deeply concerning, and worse, it may be illegal. There's a constitutional restriction on this kind of thing, injecting religious beliefs into official military instructions in messaging. There is serious concern that at the highest levels of the Pentagon, following a theology, an end-of-the-world theology, dictates a far different strategy than if one is not bound by that ethic. The history of this is clear. I mean, you once in a while have seen references of one sort or another to this kind of message, but it's never taken on the coherence and the intensity, it would seem, that it has in this effort. They note here, while Christian nationalism has simmered in the military for decades, Pete Hegseth has ended even the pretense of official intolerance for it. Trump, too, has cast himself as a champion of Christian exceptionalism, embedding it within divisions of the executive branch. Some Christians claim biblical prophecy requires Israel to exist for Jesus to return. But Hegseth's Bible study leader, preacher Ralph Drollinger, teaches that the reason to support Israel is that God still blesses Israel's allies and curses Israel's enemies. After Israel's attack on Iran last year, this same guy, Drollinger, dedicated 2 weeks of lessons to preaching support for Israel. So I point this out because I think it a strain of intense philosophy that informs the highest levels of the military now in increasing numbers. I mentioned the Pentagon chief, Pete Hegseth. I think the hiring and promotion of others is contingent in a way on those buying into this. In the same way, the hiring and promotion of many is contingent on them being cool with Trump, feeling that the election was stolen. You know, all those ways that they litmus test loyalty. But in a situation where you're dealing with true weapons of mass destruction, it's deeply, deeply concerning. Religion has always been an easy avenue for fraud, says Hilo Karen. Yeah, well, you could even argue that this whole that whole message is fraud, right? I mean, I get it. These guys believe it, but there are plenty of people, I'd suggest most people, don't believe it. I mean, the problem is that most people and a minority of people, the minority of people is still a lot of people. So it's where we are now. The country is being run by those who have deep beliefs and have a fervent zeal about this kind of thing. Religion justifies everything. No, says Buddha. But this is the situation we find ourselves in. The actual email of complaint was pretty straightforward. Here is a little bit of the email that actually spoke to this complaint about the divine plan being referred to and being messaged in multiple units. This morning, our commander opened up the combat readiness status briefing by urging us to not be afraid as to what is happening with our combat operations in Iran right now. He urged us to tell our troops that this was, quote, all part of God's divine plan. He specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelations referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. He said that, quote, President Trump has been anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to earth. He had a big grin on his face when he said all of this, which made his message seem even more crazy. Our commander would probably be described as a Christian First supporter. He's been this way for a very long time and makes it clear that he desires all of us under him to become just like him as a Christian. This is all in the email. But what he did this morning was so toxic and over the line. Basically, the guy's saying, we understand this guy's a Christian First supporter, you know, and it informs a lot of his decision-making, but this one was really too far. But what he did this morning was so toxic and over the line that it shocked many of us in attendance at the ops readiness briefing. Besides myself, I'm reaching out to MRFF on behalf of 15 fellow troops. Fellow MRFF, again, is this organization, Religious Freedom. I know you asked me about the religious views of our group, and they've requested help from you. I can only tell you that I am Christian, and at least 10 of the others are also Christians. One of the others is Jewish. One is Muslim. I don't know the religious or non-religious status for the other three at this time. I and my fellow troops know that it is completely wrong to have to suffer through what our commander said today. It's not just the separation of church and state as we discussed. It's the fact that our commander feels as though he is fully supported and justified by the entire, and the combat unit's name is withheld here, by the entire chain of command to inflict his Armageddon views of our attack on Iran on those of us beneath him in the chain of command. Then he says, I hope by sending this email to you, this will help expose these wrong actions which destroy morale and unit cohesion and are in violation of the oaths we swore to support in the Constitution. So I think this is alarming. I think it's concerning, The play for the end times, it's a story that shouldn't inform any decision-making whatsoever. We'll continue to visit this. I'm sure it will be a theme in some ways moving forward, but you should know that there are those in the services, the armed services, in the military, who have a problem with this. Not everybody's on. This isn't God's military, to put it bluntly. So, moving on.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Thanks for the super sticker, Lynn. Shama, I bring Kim in to say your last name, which I will have from now on. But
Lynn Shamshoyan.
Shamshoyan, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you see, I had such a small screen,
Lynn
and it just looks like
Shamshoyan.
all some S's and another S and a couple of H's. Now I can, Lynn Shamshoyan, I got it. Lynn Shamshoyan. Big shout out to you.
Big shout out.
Lynn.
$50.
I'm not going to cry.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Thank you for supporting the show.
I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry.
Lynn Shamshoyan is my Shamshoyan of the day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lynn Shamshoyan. Western Florida, yeah, all that, but the price of eggs is normal again. That's right, yeah. Own those libs, baby.
Big shout out.
Own those libs all the way to Tehran. Yeah.
If anyone says in the future elections, but the price of eggs, I'm going to lose my mind.
They've said it before. It's not. This isn't the first time it's been. Yeah. It's the old line. What does that have to do with the price of eggs? Yeah. Religious wars are forever wars. How many millennia have Jews and Muslims been at war? Yeah, Lakumeka is right about that. You want to turn this into. But this is where we'll talk to Rothmann in a few minutes, because the makeup, even from a religious standpoint, of the Middle East and Iran, the texture of Iran from a religious and religious sect standpoint is complicated, and you have to know the Middle East lay of the land, and Rothmann knows it. So we'll get to that in just a few moments. I did want to. Can we all chip in to get Mark a larger screen? It is true. My screen, just the configuration. My screen is small, but my heart is big. I'm having my coffee from Peacefully Resist mug. I see that, Susan Roberts. Yes, I'll get to that. But Coachella Valley Coffee is my coffee of choice. Make it your coffee. It's the best coffee I've ever tasted.
Yeah. Bring me all of the Coachella Valley tea. All of it.
Yeah, Kim grooves on the tea, which also is magnificent. We have it in our house also. I drink the tea as well. It's just I'm a coffee hound. And CoachellaValleyCoffee.com is a place you can go. This is hand-roasted coffee. The profile, tasting profiles, and the descriptions of all of the beans, where they come from. They're all organic, ethically sourced from women-owned farms. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Grab yourself a pound or two. There's some great...
Put that coffee down.
They're great coffees and great offers, and you get 10% off when you use our discount code, MARK-T. This is a boutique roastery. This isn't some discount joint where they, sweep up the beans on the floor, put them in a bag, and they sell them to you at a discount. These are all fresh and hand-roasted. CoachellaValleyCoffee.com. Use our discount code, MARK-T. You'll get what is it? 10% off, right? 10%
yeah, 10% off.
10% off.
You were about ready to increase that.
Yeah,
Wow.
I was.
Yeah.
You'll feel the coffee's so good, like you got 15% off. That's how good it is.
Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
All right, everyone.
I love them. Sometimes they put extras in the box when they send it. It's so exciting to go. You never know what's going to come. The stuff you ordered plus whatever else they put in.
They're pretty cool. I see your comments. I read your comments. And we share your comments.
And now, your comments.
I doubt he will put troops in Iran. It costs money that he would rather steal for his kids, says Ole Hansen. Wow, well, that's quite insulting to the commander-in-chief. MAGA is pure antichrist movement, says Brethren Lee. Well, I don't know. There are a lot of people in MAGA for so many different reasons. But I take your point and accept your anger. Trump anointed from Satan, not Jesus. He sells Bibles he doesn't read, says Linda Gunkel. Yeah, well, there's that. All right, without any further delay, let's bring him on. He is my Jesus. How about it for John Rothmann? Yeah.
The Mark Thompson Show.
John Rothmann, you have written a book that very much speaks to Iran, the complexities. You studied this region. You've lectured on this region. Would it be too much trouble for you to hang up the phones while we're talking?
They've been ringing off the hook.
All right, let me please start again. John Rothmann, you are a scholar who've studied the Middle East for many years. You've written a book on same. I wonder if you can give me a state of the state, and then I'll ask you to comment on some of the remarks of political leaders in this country. Go ahead.
Happy to do it. First thing is we should be grateful that the Grand Ayatollah is gone. Nobody supported the Grand Ayatollah except the Islamic Republic itself. But we have a bigger problem now, and that is this is an expanding war. As you know, Iran can only call colossal miscalculation, has attacked fellow Muslim countries. Now, you wanted me to define something, and I will do it. Iran is a Shiite nation. The rest of the Middle East is Sunni. So what you're seeing is a conflict between Sunni and Shia. But fundamentally, what you have is a president of the United States who has a perfect right to move the military wherever he chooses to do. He is not required to ask for a declaration of war. We haven't had a declaration of war in this country since December of 1941. But the president of the United States, when it comes to this, has absolute authority. And let me be clear, the War Powers Act was authored by Senator Tom Eagleton initially. And I had Tom Eagleton on my program quite frequently. Tom Eagleton, in the end, voted against his own War Powers resolution because he said what's being passed is an expansion of presidential power. So there is no check on the president when it comes to what's happening in Iran. Congress can pass all the resolutions it wants. There's only one thing that checks a president. We saw it in the Vietnam War when Gerald Ford could not get the money from the Congress to save South Vietnam. And we are not going to see a Congress ever vote to reduce funds when American military is present in a theater. So
there'll be the requirement of additional funds, most certainly in this theater of conflict, John. We're running out of munitions. We're running out of money.
But he's going to move it. Now, by the way, you heard the White House sort of imply that the reason we have a munitions problem is because of Ukraine. It's another absurd statement by this White House. You also heard the president and Marco Rubio going at each other in a way. Marco Rubio saying, we went into this because of Israel. The president saying quite the contrary. And the simple truth is this president has decided to make his mark by defeating the Iranian mullahs. And that's it.
I want to start then with, give me cut one, Tony, which is a conversation with the foreign minister from Iran who speaks to the fact that, hey, we were in negotiations and all of a sudden, this stuff happens. And he essentially says, when asked, might there be a way to negotiate a peace at this point? I think you'll hear him in a second sort of say, I don't know, we were in negotiations and all of a sudden you guys open fire. Now you want us to negotiate again for a peace that, again, can we trust it or can't we? Go ahead.
Out through intermediaries to ask to resume talks.
Do you think any Iranian with common sense would be really in a position to reach out to the United States under these circumstances? We were negotiating with the United States. In just 9 months, in the course of less than 1 year, we were betrayed. Diplomacy was betrayed. We were negotiating with the US negotiators. In June, we were supposed to meet for the 6th round in Muscat. And just 2 days before that, the United States and Israel attacked Iran. Right now, we negotiated in all good faith, in all seriousness in Geneva. And please, I refer you to the words of Omani Foreign Minister. He is a neutral, impartial mediator. He said that we had significant progress. And then he suggested to both delegations that let's talk in Vienna on technical details of a possible deal. And we both agreed. And again, on 28 February, just 1 day after that, the American and Israelis attacked Iran. And look what Rubio said. He said that we entered this war on behalf of Israel. So they contradicted themselves because they first said we had to push against an imminent threat from Iran. That's a big lie. And then Pentagon themselves, they said that there was no imminent threat from Iran. There was no intention on the part of Iran to attack the United States. And please go to the history of Iran for the past 100 years. Have we ever attacked any neighboring country? No. We have only defended ourselves, being during 1980s against Saddam, dictator of Iraq, who was equipped by some Western countries, including the United States, with chemical weapons, or against Daesh terrorists after they attacked our cities inside Iran. During the June attack, again, we had to use our missile system in defense of our people. So every responsible state, every responsible government is both entitled and duty-bound to defend its citizens.
So you got a couple things there. Obviously, the June attack was the bombing to take out the nuclear site. The other thing is of course, they play themselves in that moment as innocents here, when the reality is, of course, they have been the sponsors of terrorism across the region without question. But it is also true that there were ongoing negotiations, John, and it seems as though the Americans weren't negotiating in good faith.
See, I would disagree. There is no negotiation with the Iranian mullahs. They've never kept their word. There are no negotiations that have worked with them ever. And frankly, we know that. Didn't we have an Iran nuclear deal that Obama made? Yes, and they violated. So
that was negotiated, wasn't it?
No, but they violated it. They were continuing their nuclear development. We all know that. The IAEA affirmed that. But I don't want to get distracted here. We are now in a war. It is a war that was created by Donald Trump in order to achieve a diplomatic statement. We are now embroiled in a massive war. And I want to be clear about something. Pete Hegseth is the Secretary of Defense. There is no War Department, no matter how often Marco Rubio says it. But this is an administration completely out of control, with no logical bearings. And this president cannot be stopped. I want people to understand, in foreign policy, the president cannot be stopped. He is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces. And I know somebody out there is going to yell at me and say, well, John, it says Congress has to declare war. We have not had a declared war by this Congress, by a Congress, since December of 1941. All of our actions, including Korea and Vietnam, were taken unilaterally. And even the action in Venezuela, let me point out, where you had a walkover situation, there was no way to restrain that at all, none. And so This is the simple reality of the world in which we live. It makes us pause to consider what it means now in the presidency of the United States, because the person who is president is pulling the strings and giving the orders. You played a piece about Kristi Noem that I heard earlier. Can you imagine somebody so incompetent, so arrogant, so out of touch, being secretary of what is called Homeland Security? She creates insecurity. Hegseth as Secretary of Defense, it's nonsense. But remember,
I want you to hear a little bit of Elizabeth Warren, who came out of the classified briefing talking about this. This is cut 12, Tony. Elizabeth Warren coming out of a classified briefing and sharing this.
I just left a classified briefing on Iran, and here's what I can say. It is so much worse than you thought. You are right to be worried. Trump administration has no plan in Iran. This illegal war is based on lies, and it was launched without any imminent threat to our nation. Donald Trump still hasn't given a single clear reason for this war, and he seems to have no plan for how to end it either. Like a lot of you, I am really angry. I am angry at what Donald Trump is doing, and I feel grief for those already killed in this unnecessary conflict. And I will keep doing everything I can to fight to end this war.
So I also want
There's
you to...
nothing she can do to end the war. Do you understand? Congress is virtually impotent.
Well, why are they taking a vote on it then, John? Is it just pro?
Because to get people on the record. That is the whole point of this vote, as Tim Kaine has said. They don't expect it to have any impact at all. The only way you can restrain a president in this kind of situation is what Congress did to Gerald Ford. Don't appropriate the money. And let me remind you that Spiro Agnew and Richard Nixon both said, had they been in the White House, they would have gone ahead regardless.
Here is Mark Kelly, who also expressed the similar sentiments as to where we are in this thing and who's running the railroad.
Leading Iran are now rising up to lead it again.
Yeah, they don't have a plan. I don't think there was a strategic goal here, and they're flailing around. So no goal, no timeline. What that leads to is just more U.S. service members in a really, really challenging spot. You got to, I think one thing that I don't think has been really mentioned here much is how this president considers and his regard for U.S. service members. I mean, over the last 10 years, he's said a lot of things that makes me believe that he doesn't have the kind of respect that typical presidents have of members of the military and the challenges that they face. The Iranian people, they're in a tough spot. I mean, this is not an armed opposition. This isn't like 1979 when there were millions of people, in the streets here. It's much smaller. It's much less coordinated to the extent that, anything like this is coordinated. I want to see the Iranian people certainly rise up and replace this regime. And it's a good thing that the Ayatollah is gone, right? But, I mean, at this point, how do they do that? And 3 weeks ago, the IRGC murdered 30,000 Iranians. So this is going to be a challenging thing. I think by this point, the administration thought that this would all be over and there'd be a new government. Not that easy.
I think that's exactly right, John Rothmann, that he, again, coming off the high with the bounce in his step after Venezuela, after essentially getting through a bunch of targeted military conflicts, including the one in June with Israel and the attack on that nuclear facility. He felt like he could make this happen and make it happen quickly.
No, he can't. It's the arrogance of power. I have a very good friend, actually my son's friend. His family is all in Tehran. They absolutely oppose the mullahs. They're thrilled at the death of the Grand Ayatollah. And they have no alternative. There is no democratic tradition that exists in Iran. Now, I've interviewed Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, twice. He is not an alternative. And you will see as this develops, he's become a rallying point because there is no alternative to the mullahs. And let me tell you, you are absolutely right. There is no plan, no timeline for this war in Iran. And when the president says it could go on for 5 weeks or longer, he's absolutely right. The Iranians are going to resist. Let me say a word about sleeper cells.
Well, before you get to that, just on the succession thing, let me just note this. The powerful son of Iran's slain supreme leader now emerging today as a front runner to succeed him.
Yeah.
This, of course, as there have been stepped-up military campaigns against Tehran, and NATO air defenses destroyed a missile headed from Iran to where, John?
Turkey.
To Turkey. Exactly. This is a far bigger effort involving many more places and NATO countries than perhaps Donald Trump had originally conceived.
They were meeting to select a new Grand Ayatollah, and the Americans and the Israelis hit that target. We don't know who survived and who didn't. And the point is that anyone who is elected by the mullahs to lead Iran is going to be targeted and killed. By the way, let me remind everyone, it was under Gerald Ford. I keep hearing all this misinformation. It was under Gerald Ford that the president of the United States issued an order that we could not and would not assassinate any foreign leaders. That executive order is gone. And let me tell you, when you kill someone like the Grand Ayatollah, if you think that the mullahs are going to sit back quietly and do nothing, or that Iranians who are religious fanatics are going to do nothing, and if you understand, we talked earlier about the Shiites, if you understand precisely what the Shiites want and what they're moving toward, you understand this is just the beginning, and I don't say it lightly. I am in favor of what happened to the Grand Ayatollah. I am no fan of what Iran has done, but I listened to the White House briefing this morning, and by the way, to call the White House press secretary a press secretary is absolute rubbish. She's not a press secretary, and it was absolutely shocking this morning as she went back all the way to 1979 and the hostages to try to justify what is happening now.
Well, Trump himself has done that same kind of Wayback Machine. Now let me ask you about what you brought up, which is the sleeper cells in this country. Go ahead. Give me a word on that.
There is a question. We don't know. And do you know that Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, fired just this last week the people who were doing the Iranian analysis, or 2 weeks ago. And who's doing the analysis now? This is nuts. And we don't know the nature of sleeper cells. I can tell you the Europeans understand this clearly, and we should have learned the lesson from September the 11th. Remember, the hijackers trained not only abroad, but in this country. They went to the appropriate schools to learn how to fly planes. This is something that this country is completely unprepared for. And let me tell you something, that this will be a tragic commentary. One other quick point. There is no way Iran can defeat the United States. You understand, our military power is so overwhelming, and the president is using that power in an overwhelming fashion. But I want, again, to be crystal clear. When we look at what we are doing, there is no concrete plan by this administration. Whatever nonsense comes out of the White House, and there is reaction taking place around the world. But you know, this is going to be every moment, Mark. I am listening to the news. I'm getting calls. I received, when I found out that the Grand Ayatollah was dead, it was from an inside source in Israel, several hours before it was reported in this country. And you know, this is something that
you have contacts, which is one of the reasons I was looking forward to talking to you. You have contacts in the region that really put you close to everything going on. I want to just put a fine point on what you were talking about when you talk about sleeper cells, because Kash Patel fired that crew that was monitoring threats from Iran, those domestic threats, 12 agents and staff members from this counterintelligence unit. This just happened.
And Kristi Noem did the same thing in Homeland Security.
So, I mean, you've really hamstrung the ability of the U.S. to keep track of this stuff when you start firing people who are experts in everything from the language, which is very, very important, to the institutional culture of sleeper cells associated with Iran. And so, you know, here we are, again, flying blind with utter incompetence running the story.
Because I know we have limited time, I understand that, unfortunately, Mark keeps me on a very tight leash. But I want to be clear.
We started this conversation by John saying, I want you to know I have a hard out. I have a hard out at the top of the hour, okay? Hard out. All right.
Good. Because so much is going on, but I'd never miss the Mark Thompson program, ever.
Thank you,
ever,
sir.
ever. But I want people really to appreciate the danger that exists and the fact that this now is extending, as you just heard, of an Iranian missile heading toward Turkey, that we have unrest in Middle East capitals, that we have American embassies and consulates under siege, that we have a constant barrage. It's just something that we need to understand very clearly is happening in the world today and creates a real problem. Now, I want one more thing.
Okay.
Congress is not going to step in. So we are really at the mercy of whatever Donald Trump and his administration plan.
What I want to challenge you on is this notion that, please understand, there's no way the Americans can possibly lose in this situation. They're overwhelming in terms of their power. Yes and no. The reality is that the Americans are in a grappling match now that I don't know they anticipated, meaning they are having to take out these, and this has been so reported on by now that I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. You know, they're taking out these $20,000 drones with $1 million missiles. And the reality is you can't keep that up for 5, 6, 7 weeks without running out of missiles.
I don't disagree with you at all. We agree completely. But what I'm telling you is that American military has such overwhelming might that Iran has no chance in terms of a response. They can do little pinpricks and they can hit maybe successfully on one way or the other, but there is no way that American might can be challenged.
Well, I don't know what can be challenged means, but the reality is that, as I've just told you, American might can be diminished. You can run out of munitions. You can be hobbled by Iran. I understand. It's the old thing. I may lose the fight, but the other guy, I'm gonna F him up before it's all over.
I agree, and that's exactly what Iran is going to try to do. You're exactly correct. On point.
Wow, I really like going out with that.
You can go out with me anytime.
Yes. I want to touch on one other thing with Rothmann here in my last couple of minutes, and that's And next hour, I'll get into MAGA and the falling apart of those coalitions as a result of this, et cetera. I've got stuff from Megyn Kelly and all that. But I want to talk about, again, the planning here. Because, again, you have the weekend host of Fox and Friends running the Pentagon. You have Marco Rubio. I don't know how involved he was with any of this. And you've fired most of the State Department. I mean, a lot of the State Department hallways are empty in Washington because they fired so many people.
And the FBI.
Thank Elon Musk and Doge and the FBI, et cetera. But now I'm getting to, as a result of all of that, the planning associated with getting Americans out has clearly been non-existent. Here's cut 11 on now having to realize, as the U.S. government has, run by these people I talk about, that we got to at least try to get Americans out of harm's way. Here is Jonathan Carr.
Rubio urged news organizations to put the 24/7 State Department emergency line out so that Americans who are stuck in the Middle East can get help getting out of the region, register their names and not. But listen to what happens when you dial the number.
Please do not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation at this time. There are currently no United States evacuation points. Please continue to check the embassy's website for updated information.
So,
in the event of ongoing...
The bottom line is, if you're looking for help, you're stuck in the Middle East and you can't evacuate, there's no help yet from the United States government. You can call that number, you can go through the website, you can register your name so you might get updates later. But the number that the Secretary of State gave out, what it does for you is it tells you right now that there is no help from the United States government in getting out of the Middle East.
The coherence that you should have associated with getting Americans out was present in another war that was horrible, and you may remember it, the Iraq War. When Bush went in, and he shouldn't have gone in. And I said it vociferously. The guy had no business with the Iraq invasion and all of the mess that followed. But the one thing that Bush and Cheney did, those, in my view, despicable political figures, they had a mechanism in place to get Americans out. This crew has no mechanism in place to get Americans out. They have to ask Jonathan Karl at ABC and the other networks, please get this out to your people, this phone number, this 800 number that people will call. And then when they call it, that's the recording they get.
Okay, I have to tell you, while you were preparing for your show, and I was listening to your prep, but I was listening to the press conference as well, because some of us can multitask. What I want you to be aware of is the White House press secretary began by blasting Jonathan Karl and the media for replaying that and saying, well, if you go on now, we are making provisions for departures. But you're absolutely right, Mark. There was no advanced planning. Now, did it mean that they thought that once the Grand Ayatollah was decapitated, that the Iranian system would collapse? Which, of course, was nonsense. This is not the Shah. This is something very different. And I would remind you, the Shah was told that if you want to survive, you'll have to use our guns, American guns, against your people. And the Shah refused to do it. He loved his people. Whatever you think of the Shah, whatever how terrible he was, Savak and all the rest, these mullahs are prepared to mow down their people without a second thought.
But
And
I think your first point is a real important one, which is this isn't simply by decapitating the top dog, the end of the Iranian regime by any means. I've just told you, his son is poised to move into that position. And so the superstructure that is Iran continues.
And if it were not his son, there would be backup, because no one who is designated the leader is going to be safe, Mark. The Israeli intelligence and American intelligence are out to eliminate these people without any hesitation or doubt. By the way, if a foreign government would do that to our government, can you imagine the outrage that would take place?
We have some of that press conference, but I know you got to get out of here. Do you want to watch some of it, or do you have to run? We'll watch it without you.
Yeah, you watch it without me. But look, I just want people to know this week is going to be a very important week on a variety of levels. We haven't talked about the election that took place in Texas.
Well, I would, but you've got a hard out.
I know. What can I do? And I know you always
don't tell me everything we didn't talk about. How dare you?
You always
do you know who I am?
I'm
kind of a big deal.
I don't know. I can't. You come in here with your little agenda, and then when I interrupt you to try to move you to another thing, people in the comments go, "How come you always interrupt him? My God, you always interrupt him."
I love it when you're angry.
All right, listen, John Rothmann. You can
Thank
find
God
him on.
Your listeners are really listening, Mark.
Around the Political World with John Rothmann is his podcast. It's a daily dose of his madness. You can find him here once a week on Wednesdays. John Rothmann, we love you. Stay in touch.
Before I do the hard out, I just want you to know that I appreciated the warm birthday wishes, which came from Kim and you and everyone, and I'm really delighted.
Happy birthday, John Rothmann.
We adore you. Yes. It's
all right. I apologize. Duty calls, but I will be listening, Mark, and I want to thank you again. Everybody subscribe and contribute to the Mark Thompson program.
Oh, thank you, John. Bye-bye, John Rothmann. Happy birthday.
I've told you it's never easy being in this business.
The Mark Thompson Show.
We've got some of that press conference with Caroline Levitt. I'll get to it in just a minute. And then I want to talk about what's happening with MAGA. I'll play you some of what Marjorie Taylor Greene, I was mentioning with Anthony Davis yesterday. It's throwing the heat, man. Really throwing heat. Then I'll get into the Texas voter suppression situation. Huge changes in the state of Texas. And then more from MAGA Mike Johnson. It's a great cut from MAGA Mike Johnson. He's unbelievable. These people are incredible. So all of that. But before I get to any of it, let me quickly...
The Mark Thompson Show.
Give a big, beautiful Mark Thompson Show hug to the people at Sweet 106 Bakery. They are our latest partners, and I'm so delighted. We, as we do with all products that we consider for the show, we road tested their stuff for a month. tried a bunch of their different products, and it was a tough assignment, but we did it. Suite 106 Bakery. Suite, if you're just listening, is spelled S-U-I-T-E, like a suite of rooms. Suite106bakery.com. They have layered cupcakes that come to you. This is a brilliant invention. They come to you in these containers. It looks like the kind of container you'd get like at an ice cream store or something, right? When you get a pint of ice cream or whatever. You go to the grocery store and you get you get a pint or you go whatever. And in it, 3.5 cupcake equivalent. It's a layered cupcake.
Dude, look at that.
We're showing you the Snickers.
Dude, look at it.
Snickers with a Z.
God.
It really is magic.
Yeah.
Magic. It's
something happens in that particular Snickers cupcake cake where the gooey caramel and the chocolate frosting kind of meld with the cupcake cake, and it turns into this texture, this melt in your mouth texture. I've never had anything like that in all my years on this world.
In all of our years,
I've never seen anything like it.
Nothing like
my
this.
God. It's so good.
It defies physics.
The science is ridiculous.
It is incredibly good.
Like magic in a pint container is what that is.
Suite106bakery.com. Check them out for yourself. They bake it in small batches, so when you order, that's when they bake your stuff. And she's going to come on, Kristi. She's won Cupcake Wars twice. There she is. And she's going to come on and she'll explain the shipping thing so that when you order, so you'll understand it doesn't come just overnight, because their stuff's not just sitting there waiting prefab. They make it for you. So suite106bakery.com. Use the discount code MARKT. You'll get 15% off. Suite106bakery.com. Our discount code MARKT. Use it. Enjoy it. Live it. You won't be sorry. A piece of heaven.
Thompson Show.
A piece of heaven is what it is. John Rothmann mentioned the White House press conference. We just told you about the horror show that's going on, trying to get Americans out. And Caroline Leavitt, in this morning's presser, was asked about it. Here she is speaking about it.
Evacuation plans, because this all happened so quickly. Given how critical the president has been of the chaotic evacuation from Afghanistan by the last administration 5 years ago, why wasn't there more of a focus on evacuation plans from the Middle East that could have been at least put in place, ready to go before the strikes this weekend?
Again, I just laid out for you that there have been plans in place and that the State Department has been very clear to the American people traveling within this region not to travel to these regions. We gave notices to leave immediately the countries where these Americans were within. And unlike the previous administration, we actually have a number. We actually have identified the number of people in the region who have requested help. We are in direct contact and engagement with them. And you have to keep in mind, there's a few thousand people who have requested assistance to come home in comparison to the millions who we understand are in the region. So we will help every single American who wants to come home if they're making that request of the State Department.
I think what you'll find is that they will say that they're helping every single American, but they won't. This is exactly what they do. They say, we're doing this, it's the best plan ever, and of course there's no plan at all. The beauty of the question that was asked was that it was set up by, after the Afghanistan debacle that you were quite critical of, and the president was quite critical of, getting Americans out of Afghanistan. Why wasn't there a plan in place to get Americans out of the region? I love that question, because as usual, it's utter hypocrisy on the part of this administration. You guys can't wait to fry the Biden administration for the failings in getting Americans out of Afghanistan safely. And yet, I can only imagine what would have happened had it been left to you guys. You guys can't do anything. You can't arrange anything. The only thing you can do is fire people and grift off the government dime. That's what this administration is really good at. flying around on jets that we pay for, running up tremendous bills for all kinds of luxurious, big life choices that they make in Washington. I'm talking about redecorating. I'm talking about the ballroom. I'm talking about everything. The lavishness with which these robber barons, it's the billionaires' boys club of cabinet. These the cabinet officials, everybody from Lutnick to Besant to all of them, they're billionaires. And they sit around the table and they're just not serious about governing for the American people. And so now here we are in a war that he was talked into, feeling as though he could one and done this the way he did Venezuela, thinking that this is because he doesn't read any materials, he doesn't listen to any briefings, feeling as though he knows the region. I just know it. These are the guys who took hostages back in '79, etc. Feeling as though he could one and done it. Feeling he could get another mic drop moment. Now we're in Ecuador. I mean, this is a situation that has disappointed MAGA nation. The idea somehow that this peace president, pitched that way, could be involved in all of these different military flexes. Play for me a little of that. Marjorie Taylor Greene, for one, has had enough.
A year in, and we're in another fucking war, and we've got American troops being killed. I think it's time for America to rip the Band-Aid off, and we need to have a serious conversation about what the fuck is happening to this country and who in the hell are these decisions being made for, and who is making these decisions.
She was on Megyn Kelly's show, and then Megyn Kelly, she weighed in as well. Doesn't use the F-bomb quite as much, but she makes the same point.
I've got serious doubts about what we're doing. I support the president. I voted for the president. I campaigned for the president, as you know. But that doesn't mean, and being a conservative or being a Trump supporter or being part of MAGA does not mean you have to accept another Middle East war without questions. And anybody who tells you that can suck it.
And then I reminded of not that long ago when Pete Hegseth was saying stuff like that. Cut 10, Tony. A flashback to Pistol Pete Hegseth. Here he was in 2024.
Which we ricocheted around the world, intervening, think it was in our best interest, when really we just overturned the table and created something worse in almost every single scenario, has led to almost, I mean, the hubris of the Pentagon is that they want to now tell other countries how to do counterinsurgency based on what we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. Like, are you kidding me? So you really have learned nothing. I've been a recovering neocon for 6 years now. Like the foolishness with which we ricocheted around the world.
Yeah. But what I would say is that it's on in a big way. And if you're looking for support for it, you can find it in MAGA Mike Johnson. He'll tell you it's not a war, it is a war. They declared war on us. We were just defending ourselves. Here's Mike Johnson. Cut 15.
4 days in to a very specific, clear mission, an Operation Epic Fury. They have declared war on us. We're not at war right now. We're 4 days in to a very specific, clear mission, an Operation Epic Fury. They have declared war on us. We're not at war right now. We're 4 days in to a very specific.
There you go. They're war on us, and they declare war on us, and it's Operation Epic Fury. Operation Epic Fury.
So I have a question. If we're not at war, but Trump says this could go for anywhere from a couple days to several weeks, and now they're saying they don't know how long it's going to go on. Well, if it's not a war, what is it?
Yeah, I mean, he is saying it's not a war because war becomes a constitutional term that's applicable in a different way to his responsibilities as
So Congress has to
as
declare
head
war.
of the head of the
Yeah,
House,
mhm.
right?
Sure.
Like
So it's not a war until he says it is.
yeah, we're in
Okay.
armed conflict,
Right.
but we're not in a war because you'd need, a war
don't-
powers act to both greenlight it and to stop it. So
It seems like we threw a match into a very dry tinder because now there's bombs flying all over the place and hitting all of these countries. If that's not a war, if we didn't touch off something that is not going to end up being a massive war, then I don't know. I'll be very surprised.
before Trump bombed Iran, the Pentagon slashed the teams that were meant to limit civilian casualties. Their statements around we don't have any need for stupid rules of engagement. That's what the Defense Secretary, Pete Hegseth, said in his remarks Monday. Remember, I played a bunch of them for you. It was all kind of frat boy, masculine flex. That's his thing. But before the war, there was a decision made to reduce the number of personnel tasked with minimizing harm to civilians. At the Defense Department, there is a unit dedicated to doing that. One person said the staff in such positions have dropped off from 165 people dedicated to that effort to a handful. The Civilian Protection Center of Excellence, a Pentagon office that provides advice on limiting casualties in combat and investigates the toll of military operations, has had its staff reduced to just a handful. Many officials at military commands who worked on analyzing the civilian environment in war zones and red teaming, which is designed to make sure that everything you're doing in and around a civilian population is legal, they've been reassigned. It's not a great time to be doing this because the institutional knowledge that was meant to be there to capture the effect on civilians is gone, said someone at the Pentagon. So it feels as though they're there to kick ass and everything else sort of falls by the wayside. I don't need to tell you most Americans don't support the strike. According to 3 different polls, 52% of Americans opposed ordering airstrikes against Iran. Another 39% in support. 9% are unsure. Strong opposition outweighed strong support, 39% to 22%. The polling is only going to get worse on this for Donald Trump. And the Israelis are saying that the replacement for Khamenei, regardless of who it is a marked man. Any leader selected by the Iranian terror regime to continue leading the plan for Israel's destruction and threatening the United States and the free world and countries in the region and suppressing the Iranian people will be a certain target for assassination no matter his name or where he hides. Well, it's nice to have a defining principle, I guess. And Trump has said that same thing. Trump says he fears that Iran's next leader could be as bad as the previous person. Said that during that Oval Office. We played a little bit of the stuff from the Oval yesterday, and during that same meeting, he was saying, I don't know if there is a worst-case scenario. He was asked about a worst-case scenario. He said, we have them pretty much beaten militarily from the military standpoint. They're still lobbing some missiles, he said. They won't even be able to do that because we're hitting all of their carriers, we're hitting all of their missile stock, and we're knocking out a lot, he said. However, he said and hopes that Iran will turn a page with a less repressive government, and still he allows for a worst case scenario. He said, quote, I guess the worst case would be we do this and then somebody takes over who's as bad as the previous person, right? I mean, that could happen. We don't want that to happen. It would probably be the worst. You go through this and then in 5 years you realize you put somebody in who was no better. So we'd like to see somebody in there that's going to bring it back for the people, he said. So it's ding dong, the witch is dead, and then the Wicked Witch of the West shows up. But in geopolitics and in this kind of maneuver, you generally have a sense of succession and how things will proceed. This is quacking exactly like Iraq. You took out Hussein, and after Saddam Hussein is gone, you have no plan for next steps. And I'd suggest to you that those guys, and again, you know, I've read the books on it, the utter incompetence associated with that, the money grab that was everything from Blackwater to Halliburton, the Cheney move. If you read the book, there's a real good one on it, from Thomas Ricks. Somebody will help me with the title. You see all the tentacles of greed that move into the Iraq situation. And I mean, it's instructive because the one thing I would say about Iraq is you had, and this was the point I was going to make, you had, as despicable as it was and as awful as it was, and I've just told you wall to wall, it's terrible, greed and opportunism and disdain for both civilians and American troops when we sent them over that they weren't even prepared for the improvised explosive devices. They look like they had their act together compared to these guys. I'm talking about the president. I'm talking about those who were informing the president, and they were, again, close to clueless. Yeah, I don't think it was waging a good war. I feel like it was, maybe it was waging a good war. There's one with like one name. It was like one word, I thought, but maybe not. But anyway, Ricks has written some good stuff on it. I'm sure it's good. I mean, whatever. He writes some really good stuff. Anyway, my point is simply I'm concerned because one thing I can tell you is Trump doesn't know anything of what's going on. He's being fed, everything's great, sir, everything's great. I mean, he reminds me of a lot of these Middle Eastern dictators, who are like Saddam Hussein. Everything's great. We've got the Americans on the run, and then the Americans are like, at the palace gates. Don't worry, they're nowhere near here. Remember that guy, Baghdad Bob? He was their media minister, and he would show up and they'd have a bunch of microphones in front of him. I mean, he might have had 30 microphones in front of him as he's speaking about how we have complete control of the city. The Americans tried to land at the airport, but we repelled them. He had all this stuff, the story. There he is. And the reality was the Americans had taken over the airport and they were all over the city. And yet he was, again, just cranking the BS machine. That is what we are seeing in America now. Now, please don't misunderstand me. We have a rich history in this country of talking about how great things are going when they're actually awful, especially when it comes to war. You saw it in Afghanistan. You saw it in Iraq, that managing the message. But I'm telling you, these people who are in charge now take it to another level. So I have one more cut on this, and then I want to move on to Texas. The one more cut that I wanted to play for you is from Mark Garagos, who's an attorney who was in Washington and overheard the timing of this Iran attack in a restaurant. He literally overheard it. I told you yesterday about how people were playing the futures markets on the poly market thing, how you can bet on various world events, and how there was this huge bet an hour before the Iran military incursion started. Here is Garagos talking about what he heard the night before.
Where are you?
Washington, D.C., Joe's Stone Crab.
Could you have picked a more crowded restaurant?
No. And in fact, if I were to tell you what I was overhearing at the next table, you'd die.
Oh, I think I'm going to ask you that. Okay, here we go. You're in Washington, D.C. You could have gone to a million places to do a podcast where it was calm, and you choose Joe Stonecrab.
Correct. And by the way, do you know why?
This is
Because
just the cute stuff
I
here
actually
that
was
gets to the
going to
accent.
leave, but the conversation that I was overhearing on the next table over was so fascinating I couldn't leave.
Oh, spill it. Spill it.
I think things are happening by the time this drops in Iran is what I'll leave it at that.
You're kidding me. Somebody from the government was next to you?
I'm just going to leave it at that.
No.
By the way, my meal is getting cold.
I don't
so
care. I'll buy you another meal. I'll buy you
results.
another meal. What did they say?
that today is the day. Friday is we're sitting here.
Are you serious?
I literally just heard it at the next table. So I'll leave it at that.
Holy crap.
Yeah. Wild. It's wild where the times we're living in.
Oh my God.
I'll see you next week, Harvey. Thank you.
So when I talk about these people not being serious, this is like one of the things I'm talking about. They're talking about this at a restaurant where other people can overhear them. I mean, it's really just, it's amateur hour in Washington. There's always been an issue with the political leadership in Washington in one way or another, with lobbyists, with lobby money, with bought and paid for politicians, with defense lobbyists, with pharmaceutical lobbyists, with insurance company lobbyists. I mean, that's always been an issue. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I mean, I can tell you this, though. It was my, at least, experience in dealing with those who were in any kind of governmental circle that they were very, very serious about the business of government, about the business of confidence. And so this kind of thing, as I say, is right on brand for this crew that just is in Washington living it up. They are living it up on the taxpayer dime. So I want to get to some other stuff, but I also wanted to get to some comments along the way. So
The Mark Thompson Show.
And now, your comments.
What quickly might I see here? Sadly, this is what dying empires do, says Ren. Yeah, I guess. I mean, if you're talking about the military flex, yeah. Oh, this was such a... I just feel like finally they've got a guy. I mean, Netanyahu's government has been pounding on America to, help them with Iran for forever. And you had different rotating coteries of people rolling through the White House who were into, coteries is a ding word, you're right, who were, rolling through the White House who were up for, putting a leash on Iran militarily. But they finally got their guy because Donald Trump just, if you can flatter him, talk to him enough between MBS and Netanyahu, and as I say, Netanyahu's certainly head of the parade, but with a lift from others in the region, they found their guy who was ready to commit us. Luis says, Mouse Squeaker Johnson is an absolute waste of time. His pressers are worthless as he is offering only ridiculous propaganda with no useful info. Yeah, Luis is right. And he, of course, doesn't feel there should be a vote on war powers because he thinks it's, quote, a waste of time. But as Rothmann was noting, they want to put people on the record. What's worse, says CC Riders, apparently the government toads didn't even recognize Mark Garagos sitting right next to them. Yeah, shaking my head. Look at the impromptu situation room they set up at Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, we had that story yesterday. Thank you, Amy B. It's crazy. These curtains that kind of encircle the area. Sure, first it's Iran, and now we're in a cupcake war. Yeah, at least our cupcake war we win. Kristi won cupcake wars twice. Doug says, I don't understand why people don't see that they, that's a reference to, people don't know, to, obviously to Sweet 106 Bakery. One of our partners. I don't understand why people don't see that they are going to destroy this country if we don't stand up, says Doug. Yeah, I don't see it either. I don't understand it either. But I read a lot of stuff on the other side, and I'm in that kind of world with stuff on the other side. And so those who don't believe that that the country is going down the drain with these people, and I'll tell you that they're out there, and they're not, as I say, they're a minority, but they're a vocal minority, and they're not nobody. They're not like a super slim minority. There are also many goals that are being served, right? So Trump is still wanting to create instability in the public sector. After Iran war slows down, Epstein files from release. China or Russia will be next on his list. That's his plan, says Richard. Well, I don't know. I will show you one thing from the Epstein files, just because you mentioned the Epstein files and the idea somehow that this could distract from it. And I think it was Sarah Kendzior who kind of convinced me maybe this isn't an Epstein files related endeavor, although I understand it does distract from them for the moment. Did you get that, Tony? I sent you the redactions. No, but it's not important if we can show it. It just kind of dramatically shows you there were 65,000, I think the number was, documents that have now gone missing in the Epstein file release that were there at the beginning of the release. CBS News actually identified all of these missing documents. And so the Epstein file mess, if you want to think of it that way, does go on, and there are additional deletions that are happening along the way. And again, we're just not particularly aware of it because of everything else that's going on in the world. So one can certainly understand why. So, all right, I want to talk about what's happening in Texas. Texas is changing, and it's worth...
Hey, which one do you use, Mark Thompson?
Who's Mark Thompson?
The Mark Thompson Show.
Before I get to it, let me just mention it's Zellman's. Yes, I'm loving my Zellman's. You know, I always talk about the fact that we road test these products. So for, you know, you say you have a product that fights bad breath or whatever it is. And I go, okay, well, let me try it before we put you on the air. And I say it works. And I tried it for a month, and the stuff's amazing. I mean, the technology is pretty easy to understand. On the outside is this kind of minty blast. And on the inside, that's where the real action is. So after you get through the minty blast and kind of the outside is gone, you have it's a tiny capsule, and you swallow it. I take 3 at a time. And that releases a parsley seed oil. And in your gut, that interacts with stuff in your gut, and it neutralizes bad breath. It really does work. We take it before bed, and it helps with morning breath. So the powerful mint on the outside, the parsley seed on the inside, no preservatives, no xylitol, no artificial sweeteners. It all works. Zellman's is Zelmins for those just listening. Zellmans.com. Use our discount code MARKT at checkout. You'll get 15% off. Zellmans.com, 15% off with MARKT at checkout. Zellmans.com.
The Mark Thompson Show.
Let me just quickly check this. Ren says with a $10 super chat. What up, Ren?
Big shout out.
Thank you for the super chat. Let all the poisons that lurk in the muck hatch out, end quote. It's the statement by Claudius when asked why he was putting a corrupt, inept man to succeed him. The Roman Empire died shortly thereafter. Let all the poisons that lurk in the muck hatch out, said Claudius when asked why he put a corrupt, inept man to succeed him in power in the Roman Empire. Died shortly thereafter. Wow. Ren, hammering the quote on the Mark Thompson Show. I'm begging you.
Thank you so much.
I love it. Well, It's a dark future, though, Ren, is what I'm getting from you on that. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. In Texas, deep red Texas, things are beginning to change. Let me bring in my Democratic and Republican election specialist, Kim McAllister. James Tallarico defeated Jasmine Crockett, it would seem, winning the Democratic primary in the Texas Senate race. But there were a lot of, I don't want to call them irregularities, I'll just call them controversies. The ballot counting was one of the things that was so controversial. Now, the Texas Supreme Court blocked a lower court order to keep the polling sites open for 2 extra hours because there was confusion about where to vote. Isn't that is that why the court case was launched to begin with, Kim?
Well, there was a fight over how long the polls should stay open. There was confusion about where to vote. There was a order, the state's top court, the Texas Supreme Court, ordering ballots cast by voters who were not in line before 7 p.m. After another court ruled you could vote until 9 p.m., that the people that voted in those 2 hours had to be separated. Those votes had to be separated to figure out. So overnight, as they tried to figure out who won this election, there was a lot of controversy, and the race wasn't called until, I want to say, 2 a.m. because of this. And even now there's questions over all of this.
So let's hear from Jasmine Crockett, cut 16, as she, as you might imagine, had things to say about what was going on with what she felt was an ongoing voter suppression.
We were able to keep the polls open, but I can tell you now that people have been disenfranchised. The reason that we knew that there were problems is because we were receiving the phone calls and the emails. The polls were supposed to stay open until 9, according to a court order. The Supreme Court, just a few minutes ago, just said, shut it down. The Supreme Court also said that they are to separate any votes out that came in after 7 p.m. So here's the deal. I have no idea how it is that clerks are going to know who was in line by what time, because the rule is that if you're in line by 7, then you get to vote. And so once there was a court order saying you had until 9, I'm sure that there were people that joined the line after 7. They now are telling them that you have to separate the votes out. What this means is that we will not know what votes are to be tallied from Election Day out of Dallas County. For sure, we won't know that tonight. So knowing that Dallas County is a big dump of votes, we, in my opinion, will not know the election results overall tonight. We need to see the Dallas County votes to see where they are. I mean, if the early vote comes in, which we may have the early vote soon, if it comes in and I'm losing Dallas County, then we know kind of where this thing is going. So so that's my news, is that we're not going to have election results tonight, in my opinion.
The election results did come in, and now it's a question of contesting them, I suppose. I mean, it's a weird thing. Of course, it's a primary, very close. I mean, what were the final tallies? I saw it. It was super close. So it's not as though, you know, these the contesting of these things, it doesn't matter. It seemed like it was even within the margin of error.
I will say this all stems over redistricting, because in the past in Texas, you could vote in the 2 counties that are in question. You could vote countywide at any location. You could walk into a polling place and just vote. But now they're limiting it to party-specific precinct polling sites. And so that led to a lot of people being confused about where they were supposed to vote. People were turned away. The Texas Democratic Party leaders say about a third of voters were having problems not knowing where they should vote. So that's what touched all this off.
Right. That's what I was saying before. It's this
Yeah.
sort of, confusion. And then there was, they thought they had at least addressed the confusion, and then it got. James Tallarico is the winner, and it was 52.4% to 46.2%. So what is that, about 6 percentage points of a victory? But it looks like, I'm going to say 200,000 votes, maybe not even that many. That's like slightly under 200,000 that separated them. And Tallarico is such an interesting character to me. He's very smart. He's very good messaging. He's very solid from the standpoint of playing to those who, in many of the regions in which he's campaigned, are deeply religious. I mean, he is a Jesuit whose ability to speak to progressive ideals, the ideals of charity, the ideals of a social structure. I mean, these are all things that he can use and speak to so well. He also, I think, speaks to and against a lot of the, I'll call them MAGA precepts, where you just have that might, MAGA means so many things to different people. Maybe that's a different way to, a bad way to put it. MAGA, I think, is sort of a populist message initially. And of course, as I said, owning the libs. But what I mean is, when you look at conservative values, the cutting of social programs, the demonizing of those who are on social programs, the demonizing of immigrants, he speaks to the utter ridiculousness of that if you really call yourself a Christian. Now, you can say it, we can all say it, but he says it with real cred, And so his ascendance is exciting because he could be a very powerful voice in the Democratic Party. And I thought, Crockett's so strong, so good, prosecutor, speaks so well, meaning just, knows when to crank up the fire and knows when to just crank up the facts. I just have such mad respect for her. And I think he, too, speaks really well. He knows how to, and when I say speaks well, I mean messages well, right? Knows when to crank up the religion and God stuff, knows when to crank up the wonky political stuff. So I'm super impressed by him. And as I say, he's a rising star. So we'll watch this in Texas. But has the dust settled there?
They're still counting. They're still doing things. They've called CNN at about 2 a.m, called the election for Tallarico. But I don't know if lawsuits will be filed, if votes will be recounted, how this will play out.
The other thing I wanted to mention is that there'll be a runoff, I guess, on the Republican side, right?
That's right. There will be a runoff, and they spent, millions and millions of dollars to have it so that there wouldn't be a runoff. But
yeah, most expensive, I think the most expensive race in Texas history, maybe in U.S. history.
Yeah. And so now we're going to have a runoff.
John Cornyn, who's he's a major MAGA guy, right?
And Paxton. Mm-hmm.
And Paxton is also a major MAGA guy. They're both, super Trumpy. And Paxton is, and I talked about him years ago, you may remember, in relation to a controversy emerging in Texas because his wife was divorcing him, okay? And in the divorce, I guess she found him fooling around with somebody. There was all of this allegation associated with his corruption. And
I thought those people were Christians.
Adultery
on the 10 Commandments list? What happened?
It's all interpretive, You got to interpret the Bible the way you want.
Oops.
So Paxton, though, again, it's wild how some people can just steer through the storm, and he was able to steer through the political storm, and now we'll go to a runoff there in Texas against John Cornyn, who's been around forever. Steve Toth, I guess, defeating Dan Crenshaw in a MAGA upset. This is also in Texas. It was a four-way Republican primary for the 2nd district in Texas. And Toth's victory, they say, is one of the most surprising results in the primary elections. Of all of the upsets, his is perhaps the biggest surprise. Crenshaw is that Navy SEAL guy. You remember, he lost his eyes, got that patch, and he served in the House since 2019. He's a hardline conservative. He's done a couple of things that annoy loyalists of Donald Trump, but he isn't a guy. I mean, you're dealing with people who are really, I don't know. I'm not a fan. Okay, so that's Crenshaw on the left, obviously.
This whole race was who's more MAGA.
Right.
No, I'm more MAGA than you. No, I'm more MAGA than you. No, you're a rhino. No, I'm the MAGA. That was
so the deal with Crenshaw is that he did vote to certify the election in 2020, and so it's like that becomes the litmus test for legitimacy in MAGA land.
But
if you think that Biden actually won it,
he also condemned January 6th and the attack on the Capitol, and that did not sit well with the MAGA people.
Yeah.
So Toth wins it.
So it was an upset. Yeah, Toth wins it. I'm telling you, MAGA America is alive and well. I was thinking about doing something right now that I think is really great, but you can tell me how you feel about it, Kim, in the moment. I had a great conversation with, I want to get to Kristi Noem, though, too. I hate to do this, but I may have to put Chris Armitage off till tomorrow. We have a really good conversation with Chris Armitage. I guess we'll do it tomorrow. Yeah, I think I want to get into some of this Kristi Noem stuff. She was pilloried, appropriately so, and I've got some pretty good video for that. So do me a favor, smash the like button and
with your iron rod.
Smash the like button, leave a comment, however you want to do it, however you interact with us. It helps us in this weird algorithm on YouTube. So thank you. Some of you have been really supportive that way, and I'm going to really recognize a few who've supported us along the way in the Patreon and PayPal world. That's really our monthly support. It comes through Patreon and PayPal, and there are links to both under this video. By the way, a shout out to, speaking of supporting us, Terrence Murphy.
Big shout out.
Terrence Murphy sent a check to the Home Office. Yeah. And if you want to do likewise, Terrence didn't want to go through Patreon and PayPal. You can drop me an email, and I'll give you the address of the mothership. It's the Mark Thompson Show at gmail.com is the email address. Mark, anything you do is great. You were the huge soda of YouTube, after all, says Louise. Well, that's very nice of you to say, Louise.
Big shout out.
Huge soda, of course, a reference to Michael Schur and his friends calling somebody who's a big deal a huge soda. Happy to see Crenshaw out, but the other guy is a toot-tier nut.
Toot-tier nut.
I love it.
What? It's the battle of the nuts. Who's the most tooty of all?
They are making them tooty in Texas. I was really torn in the Texas election, where I'm just seeing that. I was really torn in the Texas election because I wanted both of them to win. Yeah, Deidre Loziger.
Yeah.
I know. Democrats had two good candidates there.
Yeah, Tallarico and Crockett. You can't, I mean.
It's true.
I kind of feel bad for the one that loses.
Eugenio says, Mark, nice to see you dealing with the octopus of the uncertain. The only certainty is the mess we are in. Yeah, boy, it does. It is an octopus.
Big shout out.
Thank you for the Eugenio for the $5 on the super chat. Appreciate that. All right, now let me quickly get to Kristi Noem and
the Mark Thompson Show.
Kristi Noem had finally been called to Congress and had to stare down the grim reality of what happened in Minnesota and what's happening in her Department of Homeland Security. Let's start with the grimmest in Minnesota, and I guess that would be Durbin, cut 5. Go ahead. Thank you, Tony.
Secretary Noem, the nation has watched horrified as immigration agents killed Renee Good, Alex Preddy. In Chicago, one of your Border Patrol agents shot Miramar Martinez 5 times after ramming her car. You and your agency rushed to brand these victims as, quote, domestic terrorist. We have ample video evidence and eyewitness testimony proving you are wrong. Your statements caused immeasurable pain to these families. Let me give you an opportunity to do the right thing. Do you retract these statements identifying these individuals as domestic terrorists?
You know, Senator Dermott, when we have these situations happen, we always offer our condolences to those families, and I offer mine as well. These are tragic situations, and I can't imagine what these families go through in losing a loved one. What I will say is we always work to provide the American people with as much information as possible, that we're relying on reports from the ground and from agents that are there, and working to be transparent, and we'll continue to do all that we can to provide the accurate information and the facts to people as we can.
Where did you get that information? In a recent hearing before the HISGAC committee, CBP and ICE officials testified under oath that their agencies did not inform you that Preddy was a domestic terrorist during that hearing, stated during that hearing.
I was getting reports from the ground from agents at the scene, and I would say that it was a chaotic scene, as you've seen in Minneapolis and St. Paul, as immigration enforcement has gone forward, and we've worked at targeting the worst of the worst, that many times our agents have been faced with violent
the victims of that violence
protesters.
Domestic terrorists as a way to calm the scene?
These violent terrorists have put them in a situation where it's unprecedented what these agents have faced it. So that situation on the ground that day was chaotic. And it was something that they were transpiring and sharing information
them as
with
domestic
us.
terrorists? Can you explain why you decided to brand these victims that we all saw on video, who were out protesting the activities of your agency and were killed as a result of it? How did you think that calling them domestic terrorists at that scene was somehow going to calm the situation?
You know, Senator, we are working in those situations where there's a tragic loss of life, and that there is something that our agents are involved in, that we continue to deliver information.
Is it so hard to say you were wrong?
We continue, as these investigations continue to go, we will provide, I absolutely strive to provide factual information, and we'll continue to do that.
And when you fail, do you admit it publicly?
Absolutely. We always know that there's room for improvement, that we will.
Steve Porter Jr.
Stop the clock, so.
Steve Porter Jr. and Dr. Linda Davis.
Yeah, there you go. So that's a little bit of the Noem, and essentially what he was saying there was, right, that's cool. Why did you brand these people domestic terrorists when the other agencies associated with just that said that they saw no evidence of domestic terrorism? But you felt compelled immediately to brand them as domestic terrorists, these people who were openly executed in the streets of Minneapolis. Now to White House and Kristi Noem. Sheldon Whitehouse, cut 7.
Could you explain this?
Sir, I'm looking at a picture of an interior, looks like a bedroom.
Of an airplane?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
You're not familiar with that?
These photos are not accurate. If you're referring to the airplanes that the Department of Homeland Security has purchased and are purchasing, we're using them for long-range command and control aircraft that is dictated in statute by Congress for the Department of Homeland Security to have a plane.
Luxury jet with a bedroom in it?
Yeah, we used a 737. I've been on it once, but it is being used by other administration officials, and it is used for command and control flights for the department. The department has found that in purchasing our aircraft, that we will save the taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars.
Does it have a bedroom
In
in it?
fact, we spent $1.42 billion on ICE deportation flights
Does it
last
have a bedroom
year.
in it?
Believe it's being refurbished and not having a bedroom in it. So it
Another
is being
photograph of the other
refurbished.
part of the room. What kind of
This,
deportee justifies being flown out of the country in a luxury jet with a bedroom and accommodations like this?
there are aircraft being purchased that will be utilized for executive air travel and for deportations.
Well, your
If you
people
remember
said
in the
that this
past,
was
we
gonna
have
be
used
deportations.
jets of this size and this configuration for deportations in the past. If you remember
In this configuration, by this
Well,
configuration, you mean
I
with a
didn't see
bedroom
the
and
inside of
luxury
them.
accommodations like this
That
you've
plane-
used for deportations. Is that true?
Sir, we have 737s that are being purchased by the department to replace contracts that we have on ICE deportations. That's what they're going to be used for. And in fact, the Coast Guard is the only entity within the Department of Homeland Security that has jets at this point in time. They had 2 G5s that were 20 to 25 years old
Let me ask
that are
you
being
about
replaced
the
so that they can
response
continue to serve our
from
Coast Guard and our military
Some senior
for
administration
years to come.
officials about these aircraft. They've been reported as saying, although they don't want to say publicly this, but individuals described as senior administration officials have described these airplane purchases as the world's worst deal and an abuse of federal funds. Can you tell me what the Republicans on this committee who voted for what I call the billionaires bill that gave you the money to buy these jets knew about your plans to acquire luxury jets when they voted for that money?
The dollars for these airplanes was appropriated by Congress. In fact, it's mandated from Congress and rules that you've given us that we need to have a long-range command and control aircraft that will seat up to 17 people in the Department of Homeland Security for national security purposes. We are complying with the law. Those planes are being refurbished and will be utilized
we'll
for that,
see.
and they'll be
Two
utilized
quick questions
by
in my
members of
last
the
minute, if you don't
administration and
mind.
other components.
First,
They will also cut our costs, sir,
First, in my last
by
minute,
almost
if you don't mind,
40%. We are saving the
you-
taxpayer 40% by purchasing our own aircraft
May I
and
have a
operating
minute?
them rather than being susceptible to the contracts that they have today.
may I have an extra 2 minutes to fill in the filibuster there?
Yeah, she's filibustering, of course. This is her thing, just to chew up the time. But just one more thing from Kristi Noem. Of course, the jet and the demand she's made for different jets to move around the country, we've detailed them here. The other thing that I've talked to you about is the way in which she has awarded these media contracts, huge media contracts, to family members or staff members' families. It's all in this very small circle. So these no-bid contracts on huge media buys where you see her picture in airports and you see her videos and the media buys associated with running those videos on Fox News Channel, on CNN, on network television. There was a Super Bowl ad that they bought with Kristi Noem, and all the different ways in which they're getting that message out. Well, that is a huge budget item that is being awarded to those who have connections to Kristi Noem. And it turns out it is staffers, et cetera. Here's the no-bid contract referenced in these conversations, cut 6, in the continuing effort to hold her to account.
It's on a U.S. government website that says that contract for $143 million was a no-bid contract. Public documentation says the contract of $143 million went to the Safe America company, created 11 days before they got an award. That company then subcontracted with the strategy group, and you are familiar with many of the principals in the strategy group, correct?
I know one of them.
Mr. Yoho.
Yes.
And let me show you a photograph. That's Mr. Yoho standing next to you, correct?
Yes.
Now, Mr. Yoho is also the husband of your former spokesperson. Is that correct?
Correct.
Tricia McLaughlin.
Yes.
So your former secretary, your former assistant secretary and her husband are the ones that got the subcontract from Safe America, or from Safe America. That's what the record shows. Any dispute about that?
No, except there was no politicals, myself or anyone else besides career employees who are a part of that process.
Except
for putting out those
well,
contracts and
that's
choosing
generous.
those vendors.
But what you have is the Republican operative.
Well, you're trying to insinuate that
I'm not insinuating. I'm stating a fact. The fact is
you're
that
saying that I
Mr.
weighed in on this
Yoho,
contracting process and I did not.
Mr. Chairman, the fact is that Mr. Yoho was married to your assistant secretary, is married, correct?
Yes, they are still married.
All right. And Mr. Yoho also ran an ad campaign for you in your gubernatorial campaign, correct?
Yes.
And he also attended your inauguration.
Yes.
And Mr. Yoho received $8.5 million, or his company did, from the taxpayers of South Dakota when you ran an ad promotion showing you doing various jobs like a plumber and a dentist, correct?
Again, that was done according to the law and processes at the state of South Dakota.
I understand, but
Yeah,
this
so-
is a person that worked on your campaign. This is a person that worked on your media plan in South Dakota when you were governor. And this is a person who also worked on your memoir. Is that correct?
On my memoir?
And he worked with Mr. Lewandowski. Is that correct?
I don't know, sir. I don't know about the business arrangements they've had in the
Mr.
past.
Lewandowski is your special advisor.
Special government employee.
Right.
For the White
And
House.
Mr. Lewandowski brought Mr. Yoho into your camp. They had worked on the Louisiana governor's campaign, correct?
No, I knew Ben Yoho before that.
All right. So the person that you knew, Mr. Yoho, the husband of your assistant secretary, is the person in the company that got the subcontract 11 days after this original company, Safe America, was founded. That's the record.
So you get the
So I have a
chain of
question.
custody here, which is
Did
just, and I
Mr.
love that Lewandowski was folded into all of this. It didn't get any better for her. I mean, she's getting called out on this. Again, it's against the backdrop of a war in Iran. I don't know how many people are seeing this, but it's good that at least it's in the record. We have two more cuts quickly. Kennedy, cut 14, is not a guy who you expect to say this kind of thing that he's about to say.
Saying that you're testifying that President Trump approved this ahead of time. Is that my understanding?
We had conversations about making sure that we were telling people.
No, ma'am.
About her
I'm
ads.
asking you, sorry to interrupt.
Her $220 million.
The president approved ahead of time you spending $220 million running TV ads across the country in which you are featured prominently.
Yes, sir. We went through the legal processes, did it
Did the
correctly,
president
worked
know
with
you were gonna do
OMB.
this?
Yes.
He did.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay.
And one thing, Senator, I think would be helpful to know is how effective that communications has been. That
Well, they were
overwhelmingly.
effective in your name recognition. I mean, I personally just, I mean, to me, it puts the president in a terribly awkward spot. And and I'm not saying you're not telling the truth. It's just hard for me to believe, knowing the president, as I do, that you said, Mr. President, here's some ads I've cut and I'm going to spend $220 million running them, that he would have agreed to that. I don't think Russ Vogt at OMB would have agreed to that. It's something we have to defend. I'm on the Appropriations Committee. My research shows that you did not bid them out, that you in fact, one of the people you picked, the strategy group, Safe America Media was a company formed 11 days before you picked them, and that the strategy group got most of the money, and the head of that is married to your former spokesperson. Look, we all have friends who are qualified. I'm not quibbling with that. It troubles me. a fifth to a quarter of $1 billion of taxpayer money when we're scratching for every penny and we're fighting over rescission packages. I just can't agree with Madam Secretary. Are you still running those ads?
No, Senator, I did not have anything to do with picking those contractors. No politicals at the Department of Homeland Security did.
I understand. Are you
Clear
still running
officials
those
followed the
ads?
competitive bid process for
Are you
that.
still running
Everything
those
was,
ads?
I think the ads are due to end here in March, I think within a week or
So
two.
they
I'm
are
not sure
still
of the
running?
update. The one that is running is focusing on angel families. Have you seen that? It is the one that's talking about this is our why. This is why we work every day.
Okay.
Is for the angel
I've gotta
families
move
and their
on.
victims that need to.
And you're saying
So you get a sense of it, and plus there are some lies that she snuck in there that these contracts were bid out, and there were no bid contracts involved, of course. Yeah.
It's interesting how many Republicans came at her with the I would say what appears to be fraud. They came after her for the plane. They came after her for the contracts that were given to people that she's very friendly with. Even Tom Tillis came after her as well. He talked about the book she wrote and what of a poor leader she is. So
Go ahead, run some of
yeah.
that Tom Tillis stuff on the way out here, Tony, please.
It was absurd. You heard the things from Senator Brett, people that
Gotta
came
crank
over
this
here
up.
who themselves were
I won't say
traumatized by
anything,
the
so you can
very
crank it up at
people
home.
who then come to this country and traumatize American citizens. You heard Senator Schmidt saying the same thing. A lot of us are very frustrated with the disaster that President Biden left behind and a failed DHS. It's why I'm angry, and it's why I've been critical of you, Secretary Noem, because we're missing an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the reasons President Trump won a year and a half ago is because people were sick and tired of a Democratic administration's open border policy and allowing millions of people to come to this country, 1.7 million called gotaways. We don't even know where they are, but we know when you pay a premium to a cartel to get them into this country, they're bad people. Now, why have I been critical of Secretary Noem? Because I don't think we're focusing on, we have limited resources. ICE can't be everywhere at once. There's very few people in Capitol Hill that support law enforcement more than me, including the sworn ICE officers. In fact, I've just been told, fortunately, in about a week and a half, we're going to get a plaque on the wall over the Capitol, thanking the Capitol police officers and all the agencies that responded on January 6th. All those thugs have actually been pardoned, and yet we haven't thanked the Capitol police officers for their work here. So when I say I'm unapologetically pro-law enforcement, you can count in every single sworn officer in Homeland Security. So why am I disappointed with Secretary Noem? Because we're not going after enough people who did this damage at the expense of running numbers that Stephen Miller wants out of the White House. We just want numbers. We want 1,000 a day, 6,000 a day, 9,000 a day, because numbers matter, right? No, they don't matter. Quality matters, not quantity, quality. And what we've seen is a disaster. Under your leadership, Ms. Noem, a disaster. What we've seen is innocent people getting detained that turn out are American citizens. I could talk about the culture that's been created here with Stephen Miller aiding and abetting. I heard first reports that he was the one that said it was a domestic terrorist situation where 2 people lost their lives in Minneapolis. I've heard that report. Maybe you can refute it. I don't know that we'll have time for you to respond because I'm giving you a performance evaluation here. I'm not looking for a response. And I'm saying, Ms. Noem, that time after time after time I've been disappointed. But before I get back to looking at the vicious people that did this damage to these families, I want to talk a minute about FEMA. You have a policy right now that anything over $100,000 has to go through your desk for approval. I asked my staff, because I'm a management consultant, I don't try to do cheap shots in here, but the facts do not lie. This is your administration for FEMA response. This is President Trump's first administration. Which one would you like to have? If you're a state that has a $60 billion disaster, your biggest disaster in South Dakota that I can tell that when you were an elected official was about $500 million. So 1/100th of this single storm where thousands of people are hurting in North Carolina and you're just barely catching up. This is what competent female leadership looks like. This is what incompetent female leadership looks like. And people are hurting in Western North Carolina from the most significant storm they've ever experienced. This is what we need more of. I'm convinced you can't do it. If you're requesting a review of $100,000 and up, then it begs the question, why? Why would you be involved in that? Why would that be a policy? And in a minute, I'll ask about some people that are involved, some special government employees. Why are they involved in it?
Yeah, so he gets to Lewandowski, too. So this is all pretty great. He asks about Lewandowski. Sorry, I hope the audio, you could crank it up and hear it. But, yeah, you're right. When you lose Tillis, you lose an ally. Yeah, it's... she is, as you know, Lewandowski, and I made the point before, he's the one running DHS. She's not running DHS. She's, don't get me wrong, I don't think she's completely ghosting DHS. But if you want something done at DHS, you go to Lewandowski, you don't go to Kristi Noem. And so she's, I like that he touches on Lewandowski on the way out. This administration, absolute clown car with an endless supply of useful idiots, says Luis, in Vlad Lenin tradition, benefiting China, Russia, and other adversaries. I mean, certainly if you are America's adversaries, you delight in seeing America in another quagmire. However, you need the oil that comes out of that oil-rich region, and it comes through the Strait of Hormuz. And so the closing of that strait is definitely a net negative for Russia and China. If so many Republicans are turning against, for China particularly, if so many Republicans are turning against her, she's on her way out. Maybe, John. I don't know. Thank you, John Watson, for that. Democrats, pay attention. This is not performative by Tillis. This is anger. There is a difference. We don't need theatrics. Just stick to pure conviction and facts. It is more persuasive. Yeah. I mean, I think that, to be fair to the Democrats, they're, I think they usually come with the receipts, but maybe that's my bias, you know. Well, I'd love to hang out longer, but I can't. We have a great conversation tomorrow with Chris Armitage. Also, David Katz, the former federal prosecutor, joins us tomorrow. Should be pretty great. There's a lot going on, and not the least of which is some of this election-related stuff in Texas, you know, with those court decisions. Kim?
Yes, we have another guest tomorrow as well. His name is Tony Box. Not to be confused with
Joe Box.
Joe Box, Sal the Shoemaker, Little Anthony. Tony Box, an FBI special agent coming on the show.
Yes, this is pretty great. Actually, he was a tough booking, and with a lot of the stuff going down in the FBI, I thought it would be a lot of, I was going to say a lot of fun, but, you know, yeah, maybe a lot of fun to talk to him about what's actually happening from a guy who really knows the territory. So I hope to get the Armitage interview in with the Katz interview and with the Box interview tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for all your support, and until tomorrow.
I'm Shadow Stevens for The Mark Thompson Show. Bye-bye.
Kim's doing after party. Tony, thank you.
Woohoo!
Out of time. Bye-bye.
Out of time. That's it. Bye-bye.